Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hello there. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. I got to bring this up to you real quick because I find this hilarious. Yesterday, at the same time, the second hour of the show, we talked about the daylight saving time legislation passing the Senate by unanimous consent. BuzzFeed News now has the answer as to how changing time could get through the Senate by unanimous consent. Turns out a number of senators oppose making daylight saving time permanent. One of those is Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, who favors standard time for a lot of reasons. Senator Chris Coons of Delaware as well, not necessarily a fan. Several other senators have come forward and said they weren't particularly fans of it either. Senator Chris Coons says he's not sure whether he's opposed or not, but he's just not happy with it, the way it went. So how did it happen? Turns out staffers in the United States Senate, Democrat and Republican, chose not to inform their bosses that it was up for a vote. Oh, the Senate staff got in the way. Senator Tom Cotton's staff in particular chose not to tell him. So here's what happens. If you want to try to pass something by unanimous consent in the Senate, you have to send everyone a notice and tell them that I want to put this on the floor of the Senate and ask for unanimous consent. So Marco Rubio did that on Monday. He sent in a unanimous consent request. It was shared with all of the senators. Typically what happens is the legislative directors of each senator review the requests for unanimous consent to see if there's anything they want to object to. And apparently the staff in the various offices of senators opposed chose not to raise concerns with their boss. Now, it could be they assumed that it wasn't going to pass, or it could be that they didn't want their boss to know, so their boss couldn't kill it. But either way, Senate staffers did this. This reminds me of the Harriet Miers story. Harriet Miers, I guess back in 2005, was one of George W. Bush's nominees to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the senators all rallied. I remember Hugh Hewitt at the time, the conservative pundit, radio show host, and writer. He was trying to put the best light on it. Somebody parodied him and said, I think the headline was, "It's a poop sandwich," being polite here. It's a poop sandwich, but edible. I give it a B. So what happened is all these senators, and you had all these pundits out there, and I was one of the guys like, no, this is terrible. We don't know anything about this woman. This is going to be David Souter all over again. Do not support Harriet Miers. And I decided, I was at redstate.com at the time. That was really one of the key moments where I pivoted towards fighting even my own side and becoming more activist about it. And I was like, this is absolutely unacceptable. You got to rally the grassroots to oppose this. And I began getting leaks, lots and lots of leaks from inside the White House and from inside the Congress and from outside sources familiar with the nominations process, and really was able to help. I was one of the first, if not the first people out of the gate with the story that Harriet Miers had been an Al Gore donor. And it went downhill from there. Now, what subsequently happened is Republican staffers in the Senate, several of whom I know and have confirmed this story with them, they were involved in it. Several of the Senate staffers who were tied to members of the Judiciary Committee started leaking stories to the New York Times and to CNN and to Fox News that, well, Ms. Miers is bombing her interviews. She can't answer basic questions about the Constitution. Her answers to written questions are ridiculous, or she hasn't turned them in. None of these stories were true, by the way. In fact, Harriet Myers had not started having meetings with members. It was an effort by staffers, if I can say through the sneezes, an effort by staffers to kill off her nomination. Harriet Myers was a terrible nominee, and the Senate staff knew it, but the Senate staff knew an inclination of her Republican senators to stand behind the Republican president. And so they sabotaged her nomination. In the same way, it appears that Senate staffers have sabotaged an effort to keep Spring Forward, Fall Back, or a standard time. Now, several senators are approaching members of the House and asking them to sabotage this legislation. There are Democrats in the House and Republicans in the House who oppose Spring Forward as the permanent time. We will see if they can make an impact. Nancy Pelosi is going to put this to a vote. It sounds like there could be a real bipartisan constituent-based effort to get this thing to a floor vote. Time will tell. Pun intended. All right. Now, I want to bring you the latest on, believe it or not, we have the resurgence of a story some of you need to hear about. Turns out there is a new wave coming of COVID. So they think. Not to freak you out. The Washington Post is reporting that there's a COVID surge in Western Europe, and American public health officials are starting to think there could be a wave here. This is from the Washington Post. Germany, a nation of 83 million people, saw more than 250,000 new cases and 249 deaths Friday when Health Minister Karl Lauterbach called the nation's situation critical. The country is allowing most coronavirus restrictions to end Sunday despite the increase. Britain had a 7-day average of 65,894 cases and 79 deaths as of Sunday, according to Johns Hopkins University. The Netherlands, home to fewer than 18 million people, was averaging more than 60,000 cases the same day. In all, about a dozen nations are seeing spikes in coronavirus infections caused by BA2, a cousin of the BA1 form of the virus that tore through the U.S. over the last 3 months that we called Omicron. The past 2 years, a widespread outbreak like the one now being seen in Europe has been followed by a similar surge in the United States some weeks later. Many, but not all experts interviewed for the story predicted that's likely to happen. China and Hong Kong, on the other hand, are experiencing rapid and severe outbreaks, but the strict zero COVID policies they have enforced make them less similar to the U.S. and Western Europe. In other words, expect more fear porn about COVID from the media. They're starting to freak out. CNN's already had on a World Health Organization official about the masks.
Do these mask mandates and vaccine mandates that have been lifted, have they been lifted too early?
Well, we recommend a combination of approaches. There is no one solution that's going to end this pandemic. So increasing vaccination coverage, and in particular, making sure that vaccines are reaching those who are most at risk, people over 60 years old, people with underlying conditions, immunocompromised individuals in every country is absolutely critical to saving lives now. But we also have to do other measures. Wearing of a mask is a simple measure. They are well stocked around the world. They reduce the spread. Distancing, being careful. We're asking people to be careful. We're asking policies in countries to use a layered, tailored approach and target it based on the needs. It's too soon to lift measures. It's far too soon to lift all measures, and in particular in certain countries. But we do recognize that countries are in very different situations. We are just asking people and policies to remain cautious.
Too soon to lift the mask mandate, they say. They never are going to want to lift the mask mandate. They're never going to want to. We're going to live in fear. Isn't it amazing, though, how COVID just kind of went away? Coverage of it went away. The virus itself didn't. But COVID went away as everybody moved on to focus on Ukraine and other stuff. And now suddenly, we're 20 some odd days into this. Joe Biden hasn't really had a COVID or Ukraine poll rebound, and now we're back to COVID. And it comes as this happens. Jeff Zients is leaving as Biden's COVID czar. He's going to be replaced by Ashish Jha. Jeffrey Zients, an entrepreneur and management consultant who steered Biden's coronavirus response through successive pandemic waves and the largest vaccination campaign in American history, plans to leave the White House in April to return to private life, President Biden said in a statement. He will be replaced as the White House coronavirus coordinator by Dr. Ashish K. Jha, the dean of Brown University School of Public Health and a practicing internist who has urged an aggressive approach to the pandemic. In other words, the incoming czar has wanted lots of shutdowns and lockdowns. The incoming COVID czar, Dr. Jha, was a co-chair of an international commission on the global response to Ebola. He has argued that agencies like the World Health Organization are critical in dealing with these diseases. Mr. Zients became an unlikely face of the Biden administration's response to the deadly virus. I hardly ever saw him, frankly. And all of this happens now with this new wave. Meanwhile, Dr. Fauci has largely gone underground. While all of this has happened, Joe Biden interacted with the Irish Prime Minister, and then the Irish Prime Minister turned out to be COVID positive. Michael Martin, Prime Minister of Ireland, on Wednesday night was diagnosed with a positive coronavirus test coming hours after Joe Biden interacted with him. But White House officials said President Biden is not considered a close contact. During the meeting with Martin on Thursday, Biden apologized for having to meet via video conference because of COVID concerns. He said he met with Martin in person for 7.5 minutes Wednesday night. They both attended the Ireland Fund's National Gala on Wednesday night before the Irish Prime Minister tested positive for COVID. By the way, here's something that you need to know for when the great freak out comes, because you and I both know the great freak out is coming. Yes, Europe has seen a massive new wave of COVID cases. They are not seeing a massive wave of hospitalizations and deaths. In fact, the reason the Europeans are dropping their guard and letting things go back to normal is because everybody's gotten vaccinated. And so while it's not keeping them from getting COVID per se, it's keeping them from dying. It's keeping them from going to the hospital. Even people who have pre-existing conditions are not as impacted by this variant of COVID as so many people predicted. It has mutated so much, it wants to survive, and to survive, it can't have its host die. So COVID has arrived at the point like the common cold, where you can catch it and you're not going to be bad off, even if you're elderly or have pre-existing conditions, because COVID, if you die, can't spread. And it wants to spread. It's a virus. The only thing it wants to do is survive and multiply. You can't do that if you're dead. And so the Omicron variant and this new variant off of the Omicron variant, though it spreads even more quickly and rapidly than the Omicron variant, actually causes even less of a problem for people than the Omicron variant. That should be good news. This is what we wanted. Is this not what we wanted? There's no reason to freak out. There's no reason to keep masks on airplanes. There's no reason to keep us locked down the way we've been. It's time for life to go on. But I can guarantee you, if the Ukraine situation resolves itself in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have just unmitigated holy hell from the media back again on COVID, except I have one caveat to that. If the polling continues to look real bad for Joe Biden, maybe they'll pretend as well the political science trumps the science, and the media leaves this alone because they do not want to do anything more to hurt Joe Biden. It's already looking like a massive Republican wave coming, and that may allow us to go back to normal so that the Democrats can mitigate some of the disaster that's coming. I sleep well at night under Boll and Branch sheets, and I need to tell you, my family, we were customers before I started endorsing them. It's what I like to do. I like to be familiar with the product and like it, and I love the Boll and Branch sheets. One of the reasons I love them is because they are super soft sheets. I got to say that word right. But they've got a little weight to them, so you feel somewhat more snuggled. Like I've got some sheets that came with the new mattress, and they're so light. It's like there's nothing on top of you, and I can't sleep well with them because it's just, and then they bunch up the satiny soft feel of the Boll and Branch sheets. It makes a real big difference. Listen, you've got so many options out there right now. You can go to a department store, you have so many options, but there's no reason to, because with Boll and Branch, you get high quality sheets. They've got a great thread count. They're perfect. They've got plenty of color options. You sleep well under them because they're soft and they're durable and they've got a little bit of weight, the perfect amount of weight for a sheet. Now, I want you to go out there and order Boll and Branch sheets because they are comfortable. They're environmentally friendly. They're built around sustainability, and you got quality that lasts. You know, a lot of the companies that advertise all the environmentally friendly stuff, their sheets don't last. I can tell you, my Boll and Branch sheets have lasted a long time, and they get softer over time. Experience the best sheets you've ever felt at bollandbranch.com. Get 15% off your first set of sheets when you use promo code ERICK, E-R-I-C-K, at checkout. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com. The promo code ERICK, E-R-I-C-K. Hello there. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you wish to be on the program. I got a story that really highlights white privilege. I know that you and I as conservatives, we tend to deny white privilege. And every once in a while you are confronted with a story that makes you realize that white privilege must be a real thing, because there's no way anyone but a white guy could get away with something like this. A court has ordered the release of Jussie Smollett from jail on bond as the appeal of his conviction is pending. Smollett, or I guess Jussie Smollett, was sentenced to 150 days in jail after he was convicted of lying to Chicago police about being the victim of a hate crime back in 2019. The Empire actor was convicted on 5 felony counts of disorderly conduct for lying to police. On Wednesday, an appeals court in a 2-1 decision said Smollett could be released after posting a personal recognizance bond of $150,000, meaning he doesn't have to put down money but agrees to come to court as required. On top of the 150 days in jail, he was given 30 months felony probation, restitution to the city of Chicago in the amount of $120,106, and a fine of $25,000. His attorney had argued he would have completed the jail sentence by the time the appeal process was completed, and he could be in physical danger of physical harm if he remained locked up. By the way, he still maintains his innocence. There's you some white privilege, him getting out of jail. His lawyer, by the way, I should say, does have a good argument that if he's sentenced to serve 150 days in prison, by the time the appeal is conducted, it could be more than 150 days, so he will have served time, and if they throw him out. So it does make some sense, but at the same time, it is rather galling here. And the guy continues to maintain his innocence. He continues to say it wasn't him. He continues to scream racism and the like. He's clearly got some serious issues. In fact, they had to keep him under surveillance in jail because they were worried he might engage in self-harm. But my gosh, the amount of people, this is a perfect corollary to the Hunter Biden situation. The number of people who immediately refused to believe the Hunter Biden story was real are the same people who believe Jussie Smollett, or whatever you want to call him. The same people who believed him, who rushed to his defense, say it's so horrible. How could people be so mean? Those racist MAGA Trump people. They're the same people who ran out to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe people would treat this Hunter Biden story seriously. It's disinformation. Turns out the disinformation were the people saying it was disinformation. And it turns out that Jussie Smollett was actually a victim of his own hate crime. I still think the funniest headline I've seen in a while is the Babylon Bee said Jussie Smollett ordered to spend time in prison with his attacker, or sentenced to ordered into the same jail cell as his attacker. Oh my gosh! The whole story there is ridiculous. And again, it is you got to say this, because it just puts the whole thing together. The people who said this guy was attacked are the same people who said the Hunter Biden story was disinformation, and it wasn't. Hello there. It's Eric Erickson. How are you? The phone number is 877-973-7425, should you wish to be on this program. The Republicans in Congress, I actually find this very interesting. The Republicans in Congress are out hawking the Democrats when it comes to Ukraine. Now, you need to at least follow along some of the attention here. The Republicans back in the 1980s, led by Ronald Reagan, knew that the Soviets were the evil empire, and it was the Democrats who were the pacifists. Many of the people today who are out there and have refused to criticize, or who are all about criticizing Vladimir Putin, they were apologists for the Soviet Union on the left back in the day. Republicans have largely, for many years, been wary of Vladimir Putin because he was a KGB operative. And Republicans now are more hawkish on Ukraine than the Democrats. From Politico, in the run-up to Volodymyr Zelensky's speech, GOP leaders criticized Biden for being slow to punish Vladimir Putin and displayed a growing hawkishness after years of drifting toward the non-interventionist mold embodied by former President Donald Trump. They portrayed Biden as a step behind on all things Ukraine, ignoring the president's emphasis on balancing global coalitions and moving together with allies. Republican criticism only grew louder after Zelensky called for a no-fly zone and more assistance to beat back Russia in remarks to lawmakers, specifically urging an aircraft transfer that would give Ukraine more firepower. Amid another day of attacks on Ukraine, House Minority Whip Steve Scalise dubbed the ongoing war a genocide, a word that implies the United States needs to engage in far greater intervention. Our own president needs to step up his game. We're not doing nearly enough quickly enough to help the Ukrainians, said Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, adding, comparing Zelensky to Biden is depressing. Comparing Zelensky to Biden is depressing. As the minority party in Congress, there's very little risk to Republican political approach. It's true. There is some disunity out there, but Republicans are being far more aggressive about Ukraine than the Democrats. In fact, the Democrats are very divided. There are some Republicans, like, for example, the idiot in Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene came out last night. She had an address to the nation. She's a congresswoman from one corner of Georgia. Had the audacity to claim she was doing an address to the nation and did the whole both sides thing. Both sides are at fault here, and I think we should stay out of it because both sides are at fault. I mean, one country chose to exist and another country chose to invade it. Had that first country chosen not to exist, it would have never happened. What a moron. I mean, that's basically Marjorie Taylor Greene's entire argument here, is that by choosing to exist, Ukraine is equally at fault with the Russians. Moron. You know, by the way, those of you in the 14th Congressional District in Georgia, you have the opportunity to vote for a Trump conservative who is not insane. Jennifer Strahan, I believe her name is. You can vote for someone who will vote the same way Marjorie Taylor Greene votes without embarrassing you constantly or beclowning herself. I mean, this whole idea, Ukraine's to blame for Russia invading it. Really? Maybe she's just got the hots for Vladimir Putin. Just bizarre. Just bizarre. But most Republicans outside the crazy few are standing up now. Now, I got to tell you, Lindsey Graham has gone to the other extreme. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene as one nut in the House, and Lindsey Graham is the other. And he says we just need to assassinate Vladimir Putin. How is that helpful? How is it helpful to say, let's just go kill? No, I mean, listen, if the Russian troops decide they want to go get rid of Vladimir Putin, God bless them. Let them do it. Give them an award. but I don't think it's helpful. And he's like, well, if John McCain were here, John McCain would be saying this. Maybe it's time to get off the John McCain bandwagon. John McCain was not a Trump fan, and you were like the leader of the Hump His Leg coalition for Donald Trump. Lindsay, come on. But even Susan Collins, probably the Republican in Congress who likes Joe Biden the most, is critical that the president has been too slow. It turns out that Anthony Blinken wanted to send those, allow the Poles to move their jets to Ukraine, and Biden has been very adamant. He is convinced that we should not escalate. As I mentioned in the first hour, Joe Biden, his position is even being criticized by former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. Why on earth are we telling Russia, do whatever you want, we're not going to respond? That just encourages someone like Vladimir Putin to go further. Not only that, let me just tell you what the genius Joe Biden is doing. The new American deal with Iran will allow the Russians to build nuclear sites in Iran. That's right. The Washington Free Beacon has this story. Russia's top state-controlled energy company is set to cash in on a $10 billion contract to build out one of Iran's most contested nuclear sites as part of concessions granted in the soon-to-be-announced nuclear agreement that will guarantee sanctions on both countries are lifted. Russian and Iranian documents translated for the Washington Free Beacon show that Rosatom, Russia's leading energy company, has a $10 billion contract with Iran's Atomic Energy Organization to expand Tehran's Bushehr nuclear plant. Russia and the Biden administration confirmed on Tuesday that the new nuclear agreement includes carve-outs that will waive sanctions on both Russia and Iran so that Russia can complete this contract. We, the Biden administration, I shouldn't say us, the Biden administration is willingly allowing the Russian nuclear energy company to build nuclear reactors in Iran and get paid $10 billion for it. How is any of this sane? How is any of this sane? None of this should be sane to us. We should recognize this is absurd. But the Biden administration is dogmatically insisting we need some sort of deal with Ukraine. And can we really trust Joe Biden with this? Can we really trust him? The man has gotten everything wrong since Afghanistan and has been dogmatic about all of it. To see him dig his heels in Afghanistan, call it a tremendous success, and then move forward from there, and everything else is a tremendous success. Do we really think that the Iran deal is going to be a tremendous success? Do you really? With China, Russia, and Iran on one side of this, and the Americans and Western allies on the other, who still think the entire world can be resolved on a piece of paper with signatures, when Russia is showing it does not care about pieces of paper with signatures in Ukraine. The whole thing's bizarre.
And now, Deep Thoughts by Joe Biden.
Started off, there were going to be negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghan National Security Forces and the Afghan government. That didn't come to fruition. So the question now is, where do they go from here? That the jury is still out. But the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
That was Deep Thoughts by Joe Biden.
And that guy now wants to make a deal with Iran. Do you really trust him to make a deal with Iran? Really? Well, hey, I have become convinced. I am sold on a theory. My theory is that Kamala Harris was picked not as a diversity pick, but picked so that no one would dare use the 25th Amendment. She is having more of a shakeup in her office. Sabrina Singh is leaving the office to go to the Defense Department. A top aide headed over there with it's a pattern of recent departments. Jamal Simmons, who served as communications director for the vice president, wrote about the sad news of Singh's departure in a memo. Singh, who's a key advisor to Harris, worked alongside her during the general election and the presidential transition, was hired by Harris in March of 2020 to operate communications for political matters, and has stayed on. The new deputy press secretary will be Ernesto Apreza, according to reports. Apreza has served in the White House Office of Public Engagement. Now, in January, Harris was forced to select a new communications director following an onslaught of departures from her office. Simone Sanders resigned in December. Vincent Evans left after a year, according to a statement to CNBC, left in January to go work for the Congressional Black Caucus. Peter Vels, director of Harris's press operations, served his last day on the job in January. Went over to the State Department. Here's a dirty little secret that circulated in Washington, D.C. Harris's trip to Poland was not good. Kamala Harris's trip to Poland was not a good thing. It got her more bad PR with her ridiculous laugh that she did that the Ukrainians were even concerned about. In fact, you had one Ukrainian press person, Zelensky's former spokesperson, had to delete tweets saying that Kamala Harris's presidency would be a tragedy. Listen to this clip.
I have to ask you about something you wrote on Twitter. You tweeted that the presidency of Kamala Harris, if that were to happen, that would be a tragedy. You deleted that tweet. But why do you think that?
I deleted that tweet because I was explained that, I'm sorry, this is an air alert. Yeah, I'm sorry. I deleted that tweet because I was explained that Kamala Harris had this kind of peculiarity of communication when she feels uncomfortable. But for us, as for Ukrainians, it was a very bad experience to see this type of reaction, a laugh, when, we were listening about one of the biggest tragedies of Ukraine right now.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who didn't hear Vice President Harris, what would you do? She's like,
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I wanted to ask you about some reporting that my colleague here in Poland noticed. He recently spoke with the mayor of the largest border town, who told him that the refugee system is essentially not set up for this, that it will collapse. It's an improvised system that can work for maybe 2 weeks, but not indefinitely. And I'm wondering what the United States is going to do more specifically to set up a permanent infrastructure. And relatedly, is the United States willing to make a specific allocation for Ukrainian refugees? And for President Duda, I wanted to know if you think, and if you asked the United States to specifically accept more refugees.
Okay. A friend in need is a friend indeed.
First. Oh my gosh. This is the Vice President of the United States. She's having to shake up her team again, having come back from Poland. Even within White House circles, it was not viewed as a success. We've done Joe Biden's. Here's Kamala Harris's.
And now, Deep Thoughts by Kamala Harris. That was Deep Thoughts by Kamala Harris.
Remember, y'all, it's not her team, it's her. Now, I got to tell you guys about one of the great companies out there fighting the good fight for conservatives. That is Patriot Mobile. Listen, I know there are other companies out there that claim that they do what Patriot Mobile does. But actually what these companies are is they're like a single company that has multiple outlets. And so they brand for conservatives. They brand for liberals. They brand for Obama phones. Patriot Mobile is just a company that is set up to advance the conservative cause. If you do business with them, they take a portion of their profits and they use those profits to advance the gun rights movement, to advance the pro-life movement, to advance the causes of veterans and first responders. Patriot Mobile is a great organization. You can be a part of Patriot Mobile, and they've got great service. They use the same cell towers everybody else uses. So it's not like you've got to worry about their quality of coverage. They got the same coverage all the other guys have. What you do is you go to patriotmobile.com/Eric, patriotmobile.com/ERICK. You move over, you get free activation with my name, or you can call them 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, and tell them I sent you. You get free activation. But not only that, you get great discounts if you're a veteran, discount first responder, discount teacher, discount NRA member, discount large family, need a lot of lines, discount. patriotmobile.com/Eric. If you didn't know this happened.
We greet the President of United Earth.
Madam President. Madam President. Welcome. I am so pleased that you've come. We are eager to begin diplomatic discussions.
Nothing to discuss. United Earth is ready right now to rejoin the Federation.
Yes, that would be Stacey Abrams. She's the president of Earth. Star Trek Discovery, which is a dreadful TV show. Several friends of mine said she actually improved it. Her performance improved. She's a big Star Trek fan. I'm a big Star Trek fan as well, although I find a lot of the new stuff absolutely dreadful. But I'm not a progressive, so they would never invite me to be on Star Trek Discovery. But she's the cast as the president of Earth. What does it tell you about the thigh sweaty dreams of the left in Hollywood? Oh, we should cast Stacey Abrams as the president of Earth. Is she actually the president of Earth, though? Or does she just claim to be the president of Earth and there's actually another president of Earth, but she's out there actually doing this thing where they allow her? And this is the thing that so many people dislike about Hollywood. That they will embrace the liberal fan fiction and they will prop these people up. They would do this for Stacey. They would never, if Brian Kemp were a diehard fan of Star Trek Discovery, which he's not because he has taste, they would never allow him to have an appearance. Look at Pat Leahy. Pat Leahy, the senator from Vermont, progressive Democrat, huge Batman fan. He's been in every Batman movie because he's a progressive in the Senate who loves Batman. A conservative in the United States House or Senate who loved Batman would never be allowed to be involved. But our side is expected to just shut up and take it. And their side will say, well, I'm never watching it again. And the liberals in Hollywood will quake in their boots. I don't really care. Honestly, I'm happy for Stacey Abrams. She was invited to be a part of Star Trek. And I'm not kidding when I say every friend of mine who watches the show says it's dreadful and that she's actually an improvement from what's generally there. But also, my gosh, of course they would cast her as some sort of savior of Earth, rejoining the Federation after those icky troglodyte people she replaced. Of course they would cast her in that role. All right. We got more stuff to talk about when we come back, including the ruthlessness of the various parties. Because Chris Cillizza went on social media and declared that turns out the Republicans are far more ruthless and have drifted so far to the right compared to the liberals. And it's in defiance of actually all of the data that's out there. Turns out the Democrats have moved further to the left than the GOP has to the right. It's 2022. Things are still crazy. Things haven't settled down. And now you got the Federal Reserve and interest rates. You got the economy. You got inflation. A lot of banks won't even return your phone call. Let's say you're a small business and you need a loan for $750,000 or higher. You see an opportunity where banks, they don't even want to see you. You want to buy a building. You want to build a building. Reach out to the Frost family at First Liberty Building and Loan. They've been helping small businesses become big businesses since the 1990s. They want to help you if they can. So spend 10 minutes with them. See if you're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for you. Their website is firstlibertyga.com. That's firstlibertyga.com. Again, you need a loan, $750,000 or higher. You're a small business and you see an opportunity to grow. Share it with the Frost family and see if they can help you. Firstlibertyga.com. That's firstlibertyga.com. First Liberty Building and Loan can help businesses nationwide become bigger businesses.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.